Welcome friends, Social Studies. Today we will take up a new unit. Before we take that up, I like to discuss a few points with you. We all know man is a social animal. Man cannot live all alone. He cannot. He needs his relations, he needs his friends, he needs people in different professions. Only with a due rapport with all these different entities of the society, he can live happily. In today's world, are we living alone? Or is it that our family is separate from this society? We don't have any relation with anyone. We live in a forest separately, no connection, no link, we are happy. No one likes to opt for that because we know we need help from all quarters of society. We need the carpenter, we need the blacksmith, we need the goldsmith. When we are sick, we need the doctor. If we are severely ill, we need a hospital with all the facilities there. For our kids, we need schools. We need magazines, newspapers and daily groceries. We need shops. See, at each and every interval, you are dependent on others. And they are dependent on us, depending on what we are, what we do stand for. If I am a teacher, during my life, I teach scores of children. If I am a doctor, I'll serve scores of patients. See how beautiful if you just pay some attention to the kind of rapport people should have or kind of rapport that families should have. This life turns to be very interesting. No family can live separate. This is what I mean. It's the same thing with 190 odd states in the world. 193 duly recognized countries are there in the world as per the United Nations. Apart from that, there are many nations which are waiting for a clearance from the United Nations to enter in or to have a special status. Now, all these countries need to have good rapport with each other, without which no country will be able to lead a good life. No country can be totally independent of other countries. Oh, I don't need grains, I don't need any technological inputs, I don't need any connection with the rest of the world. You turn to be a damn fool if you say that way. For everything, for every need, we need the backup of other countries. In the meanwhile, we extend our cooperation to them whenever they need, they want to trade, they want some help in the field of commerce, or in the case of event of some emergency, we rush help to them, we give them the assurance. There will be daily discussions, debate and conferences between one country and the other or among the different countries of the world. This is how the world goes on. We all have to live as one family. This is what Prime Minister Modi keeps on reiterating in all his speeches. What does he say? Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This Vasudhe, Sanskrit word, Vasudhe means earth, the globe. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. You can make it out very well. One Kutumba, it is one family. Remember, let us not fight among ourselves. Let's respect each other. Let's respect the sovereignty of each and every nation. We should be a responsible member in the Committee of Nations and do our best what we can to the rest. We should prove to be good nations of the world. Okay, that much of introduction is enough. Why I went on narrating these aspects is to tell that we as a nation, we too have to maintain good relations with our neighbors, good relations with all the countries of the world, because we remember in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, even in our Indian Constitution, in Part 3, Article number 51, it says, put every effort to maintain good relations with other countries. That's our objective. That's our goal, ultimate goal. Because we know how important it is. If you have good neighbors around your house, you feel all the time very safe, secure. Oh, I have these people around me. They are ready to extend their hand, helping hand at any moment I need. And you too rush to them. When they need some help, you are out there to help them. Article 51 of the Constitution, it's explained in Part 3. It tells that as a country, we should put all efforts to maintain good relations with other countries. With that much of introduction, let us move on to the first nation, that is Russia, and let us discuss how are our relations with Russia. Why did I take Russia, you may ask? There are numerous countries. Why did you take Russia? Russia is one of the superpowers of the world. It's a long-term friend of India, a long-term friend. And the friendship has been kept up. It's been maintained. After the Second World War, 1939 to 1945, two superpowers emerged. 1945, Japan was bombed. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed by America. With that, the World War came to an end. The Axis powers, they surrendered to the Allied forces. The Allied forces were Russia, America, Britain, France. The Axis forces were Germany, Italy, and Japan. Italy had got subdued much earlier. Germany went down on its knees later, and Japan surrendered when bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So the course of the World War has come to a full stop, a halt. From this World War, two superpowers emerged in the world. One was Russia, the other one America. It was undisputed. Everyone agreed that these two are superpowers, America and Russia. America was a democratic country and Russia was a communist country. See, again, there is an absolute difference between the two. America believed in democratic processes. People have to vote and elect the government. That government will stay in power for 4 years. Again, after 4 years, there will be another election. If they are happy with the previous government, they retain it. If they are not happy, they pull it down and the other government will come into power. As India is, the people of America, they had decided to follow the course of democratic values. But Russia was totally different. Russia was a communist country. It said, we have to attain equality. By democracy we cannot. People are illiterate. They won't understand. Political science and government administration, they won't understand. We have to force things. The government stood for laborers. Government stood for farmers. It declared it is in the upliftment of the farmers and laborers that the future of the country lies. So Russia turned to be a socialist country, a communist country. America turned to be a democratic country. Very important, you have to remember. And as these two superpowers emerged, there was mutual jealousy. America did not like Russia reaching the top. Russia did not like America going in the top gear to reach the top. So each one wanted to pull down the other. They started planning weapons, accumulation of weapons. War industry got promoted. And everywhere, wherever there was friction in the world, America joined one side, Russia joined the other side. All these we have studied under non-aligned movement and Cold War. Cold War, this is what we call as Cold War. Two blocks fighting with each other almost in every sphere. And India did not want to join any of them. India remained neutral. Neutral. It maintained the same distance from both the power blocks. It maintained the same distance. And what kind of neutrality? It is not passive neutrality, active neutrality. Whenever there is some dispute, some problem, we put ourselves in to see that some solution is found. Wars are not fought. The world remains peaceful. So that was the kind of foreign policy Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, designed for the country. He was the architect of our foreign policy. He was the architect. He wanted good relations with China. Chou En-lai, the Prime Minister of China, was invited to India. And Jawaharlal Nehru and Chou En-lai, they signed the Panchashila, the conduct, 5 conducts for any nation, to see that peace is maintained. There is no violence. Good relations are there. Countries respect each other. With each and every nation, we hoped that we will have good relation. So with Russia, we were able to maintain very good relations. Let's start going through it one by one, the points. First one, India's relations with other countries. Indo-Russian friendship. Indo means India. India, Russia friendship. Indo-Russian, we say. India has maintained good relationship with Russia throughout. There was no friction between Russia and India at any point of time. We maintained very good relations with Russia. We attained independence in 1947. So after that, Russia and India maintained very good rapport. Point 2. Though India followed the non-alignment policy, we have already learnt non-alignment policy. We have learnt about Cold War, so I won't go into details. You can refer back to my earlier lecture on that. Indo-Soviet cooperation. India and Soviet Russia, they cooperated with each other. Even when you have good rapport with somebody, it can't grow just on its own. You have to feed it. You have to pour, as you pour water to a plant, you should see that the relations are kept up. You keep visiting, they keep coming to your house. Whenever problems are there, you help each other. All these are the ways and means as to how you feed and make the plant grow. The plant of friendship. Indo-Soviet cooperation continued in political, economic and other fields. Politically, India used to share with Russia. India used to guide and we used to get guided. We used to advise these superpowers too. Economic, financially we were weak after getting independence. Russia helped us in many ways because Russia wanted to keep very good relations with India and other fields. Now, the way you plan out all these, see, saying that India and Russia should have good friendship is one thing. How to keep up this friendship? This is a second thing, second aspect. You have to plan it out. What should we do? How can we help them? What help can we take from Russia for our development? So you have to design it. You have to plan it. That is what you call as foreign policy of a country. How should we be with Pakistan? How should we be with China? How should we be with Japan? As a responsible country, we plan out everything and we go by them. Look here, the third point I have given here, Russia supported us at the time of Goa liberation in 1961. In 1961, India put efforts to see that the Portuguese government there is driven out. The Portuguese were ruling Goa. They were phenomenally strong and dominant. They were torturing Indians. People were being converted into Christianity. Portuguese never wanted to leave Goa. There was a lot of domination by the Portuguese. Though the British gave us independence in 1947, the Goan Portuguese government was not prepared to leave Goa and go. So ultimately, when even persuasion and all other means failed in getting Goa into Indian territory, the Indian government then, under Jawaharlal Nehru, decided to send the military. Military surrounded Goa and we declared war on the Portuguese. From Portugal, ships had left with army men, soldiers, weapons to reach Goa to join the right control, to put the Indian forces down. But the president of Egypt, Abdul Nasser, he closed the gates of Suez. He said, I won't permit any Portuguese ship to cross here. So the ships which had entered Mediterranean Sea had to go back and move around Africa and come to Goa. That will take another 1 month. Before that, Indians saw that the Portuguese bundle up everything and leave Goa. Goa became free. During that moment, vocally, Russia gave all-out support to India. It said Goa is a part of India. Goa needs to be given the independence and it is left to the Goans to decide their future. So it became very evident as to what stand Russia would take in such a situation. Then Chinese aggression of 1962. In 1962, the Chinese attacked India over the Himalayas. They tried to enter India and Indian forces were in very poor shape. It is said that the soldiers who were fighting on the Himalayas did not have proper shoes to wear. Situation was really horrible. The Chinese had an upper hand. At that time, Russia too says that Chinese aggression is not in good spirit. America declares its support to India. Russia could have joined China because Russia was also a communist country, but Russia did not do that. They said what China is doing is not in good spirits. It's not proper to invade another sovereign country. Just 2 years earlier, China had attacked Tibet, and Tibet had got swallowed by China. And Dalai Lama and his followers had come to India, and they had taken shelter here. China was angry about the way India had taken up that. India was not happy with Chinese aggression of Tibet. India explicitly expressed it. That was not liked by China. And China felt India should be taught a lesson. But Russia stood with us. We will move to the next point. 1966. Seeing the victory of China in that brief war that took place in 1962, month of October, Pakistan decided, why should I not attack India? India is a weak country. I can attack. Take away Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan attacked India in 1966. Then Lal Bahadur Shastri had been the Prime Minister of India. China felt he is a novice. What does he know? He may not be able to handle the affairs of the country if a war gets declared and Pakistan attacks India. In 1966, when Pakistan attacked India, America supports Pakistan because they had a military alliance. Pakistan and America had a military alliance, and America had supplied lots of weapons to Pakistan. There was no way out but to support Pakistan. Immediately, Russia joined India. Russia said, I will support you. Fight it out. That came as a big strength to India. And 1965 war between India and Pakistan was won by India. We were able to go deep into their territory, hold it. Then in January 1966, Russia invited both India and Pakistan to a city called Tashkent in Russia for an agreement. You are neighbors. Let's sit and discuss and debate and find a solution over the table. So Lal Bahadur Shastri and Ayub Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, then they were invited to the negotiating table in Pakistan, and Tashkent Agreement was signed. On the 10th of January 1966, the Tashkent Agreement, wherein India had to return all the lands what it had taken over during the war, has to be given back. There won't be any war in future. There will be peace prevailing. All these, as per the agreement, all these were discussed, decided and signed. But to the ill luck of India, it's not known clearly still. The very night, that very night at 5 o'clock in the morning, Lal Bahadur Shastri breathed his last in Tashkent. 10th of January, he signs. 11th of January, early morning, the door did not get opened, and then they opened, they found the dead body of Lal Bahadur Shastri lying on the cot. Still, it's an enigma. Was he really sick? If he was sick, was there not anybody to look after, to attend him? Did he not any symptoms the previous day? How can it happen? Somebody who was very hale and healthy the previous day to sign the agreement, all of a sudden he dies of heart failure the next morning. So it's still just sit there. We don't know what happened. We'll leave it out there. But the important point we want is that Russia played a crucial role in getting both Pakistan and India to the negotiating table and getting Tashkent Agreement signed. So Russia might have helped us in winning the war, but at the same time, Russia was very much interested in seeing that peace prevails. Peace prevails in this subcontinent. That's the important point we have to keep in mind. Was signed, Tashkent Agreement was signed by India and Pakistan with the mediation of Russia. Who sat to mediate? What is mediate? To negotiate. Speak to both the parties and somehow say the agreement is sealed. Pakistan and India had Russia's Kosygin. Kosygin was the president of Russia. He was at the mediating chair, mediating table. Okay, next point. 1971, 1966, Pakistan lost the war horribly, but it did not learn a lesson. 1971, it was torturing and exploiting the people of East Pakistan. Pakistan had been in two parts. West Pakistan, the Indus zone area, and the other one, the Ganges, where it joins the Bay of Bengal. That part was East Bengal. In East Bengal, which was East Pakistan, it was East Bengal, no doubt, East Pakistan now. Pakistan had not given the needed freedom and liberty to the people. It was exploiting the people of East Pakistan. All new plans, projects, ideas, concepts, they were getting executed in West Pakistan, not East Pakistan. East Pakistan, which was fertile, very fertile land, people were striving hard. They had not been given any independence to plan out for themselves. Regional independence was not there, freedom was not there to decide. So there was a freedom fight, big struggle. It went to such an extent that Pakistan sent its military to control, curb it. India said, this won't do. You can't have bloodshed. Let people decide what is to be done. Then that led to war. Pakistan invaded India in different areas. India reciprocated it, and Indian army went far into Pakistani territory. It was almost close to Rawalpindi. It was being said then, another 2 days Rawalpindi would have been in Indian hands, the capital of Pakistan. Karachi had got bombarded. Almost all airports had been, military airports, they had been bombed. Here on the other side, in order to control Pakistan, what did we do? Srimati Indira Gandhi had been our Prime Minister then. She sent Indian army into East Pakistan to help the Bangla citizens, freedom fighters there. They had called us. They had requested India to send help. And India immediately listened to their difficulties and problems. And we sent our military. Even our Air Force helped. Thousands of soldiers were dropped over Dhaka and other cities of East Bengal, East Pakistan. Paratrooped. They were paratrooped. They were dropped with the help of paratroops by the Indian Air Force planes. And within hours, Bangla got liberated. Bangladesh became that dream became true. Another new nation came into existence. That was Bangladesh. Pakistan was unhappy. 1 lakh, it was 90,000 to put it exact, 90,000 soldiers of West Pakistan surrendered to the Indian military. They were under the leadership of General Niazi. General Niazi and his team of 90,000 soldiers were arrested by India and they were brought to the Indian territory. Then Pakistan had to go down on its knees to get back those 90,000 soldiers from India. The agreement was signed at Simla. There too, India was supported by Russia. Pakistan had been supported by America. 1971, India and Soviet Russia entered into 20 years treaty of peace, friendship and cooperation. 1971 war, Russia helped us. 1971 we had the treaty, 20 years treaty of peace, friendship and cooperation. In order to cement the friendship between Russia and India, a 20 years agreement was signed. Russia came out with lot of economic assistances for India. Russia assisted India to set up 2 steel plants, one at Bhilai and the other at Bokaro. They are 2 big steel plants because India was finding it difficult to go ahead with capital outlay. Russia came forward, said, come on, we will help you. Then we have received a lot of aid from Russia for the growth of our industry and commerce. Not only Bhilai and Bokaro, for many of our industries, many of our projects, Russia came out and helped us. Then Russia has extended support to India's quest for permanent seat in the UN Security Council. See, earlier, when the world offered us a permanent seat in the Security Council, we gave away that chance to China. We said, China, let China enjoy it, it's all right. Russia, America, France, Britain and China. We lost that chance. Now we want it, but we don't get it. Because China, you see China is obstructing India's entry. India had felicitated China's entry then. But today, China is obstructing India's entry to get permanent membership of the UN Security Council. If 5 members of the Security Council, they have the veto power. All the policy decisions passed by the General Assembly are once again discussed in the Security Council, then it would be voted by the Security Council. There are non-permanent members too. But out of 15 members there, the 5 permanent members have to agree. If they don't agree, the decision won't get taken. The policy decision would fail. So Russia extended its support. Always Russia said, yes, India needs to be given permanent membership in the Security Council. But America, quite a few times, it has come in the way. America did not agree to give us the permanent membership. Today the situation is different. America and India are close friends. We are a close knit friend for Russia. We are a close friend to America too. We have won both these 2 power blocks. But China is intimidating. China is not a facilitator. China intimidates. It says, no, don't give India the membership. I have reasons for that. It should not be permitted because China doesn't want India to enter. All China's secrets, clandestine deals will get unfurled by India in case India enters there. Okay, those are the things. You see a few photos here. Here you see Putin. Now Putin is the permanent president of USSR, Russia, for the coming years. Till his death, he will be the president of Russia. Here Modi, they are shaking hands. We are very close to Russia. Russia has trust on us because we are long-term friends. This long-term friendship has proved everything, that India can be trusted very well. Here, from Russia, we have procured INS Vikramaditya aircraft carrier. The cost of it is more than 1 lakh crore rupees. 1 lakh crore rupees. It has been reset and Indian Navy has been trained. It is an aircraft carrier. It can carry around 45-50 aircrafts on it. It has 5 stories inside. 5 stories it has. It's a great aircraft. Very few such aircrafts are there. Very few such aircraft carriers are there in the world. And we have got it renamed as Vikramaditya. It has been docked at Kaiga of Karnataka. It's in North Canara. Kaiga is a nuclear station. There we have a naval port. In that naval port, we have made special arrangements for getting INS Vikramaditya docked. We do not want to keep it in Bay of Bengal. We want to keep it in the western coast because we should be close to Karachi. We should be close to Pakistan. In case Pakistan starts wagging its tail, creating mischief, INS Vikramaditya should be able to attack Karachi within 2 or 3 hours. That's why we have not docked it in Vishakhapatnam. We have got it docked in Kaiga. Very interesting aspects all these are. Then you have a photo here of the Tashkent Agreement. Tashkent Agreement, this photo, here you have the tiny stature of Lal Bahadur Shastri, a great administrator. He loved his land like anything. When he died, his passbook, you believe, it had 15 rupees. Lal Bahadur Shastri's property altogether, it was just 15 rupees which was there in his passbook. He was the Prime Minister of India. When the government spends everything, why does he need personal money, he used to ask. I don't need. A great, great individual, a great patriot. After Jawaharlal Nehru's death, the question comes as to who can be the Prime Minister of the country. Then all eyes turn towards Lal Bahadur Shastri. And we have Kosygin tooth there. Here you have the photo of Lal Bahadur Shastri. He was the PM from 1964 to 66. This about 1.5 years. For about 1.5 years, he was the Prime Minister of India. But he got that Indo-Pak war won for India. Thank you.